Russia asked China for military and financial support to solve Ukraine war, and the U.S. said China is open to that.
Sullivan's talk with Yang Jiechi in Rome yielded only disagreement.
Russian army stalled over the weekend near Kyiv.
700,000 people are infected in Hong Kong. Cities all over China reported fast increase of Omicron cases, which challenged the party's unique pandemic policy.
Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
All right, okay. So, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan's meeting Monday in Rome was originally meant to be a simple one as a follow-up to the U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese Communist Party's General Secretary Xi Jinping's nearly 3-hour virtual summit in November. But it turned out to be a crucial meeting for both countries.
So a little bit of a background. Over the weekend, Financial Times reported that Russia has asked China for military and financial support for its war against Ukraine, but Financial Times doesn't know whether such support has been provided.
So during an intense and 7-hour meeting in Rome on Monday, Jake Sullivan has substantial discussions with the Chinese top diplomat Yang Jiechi regarding the Russia-Ukraine war and Russia's request for support.
So after the Rome meeting, the statement from the Chinese Communist Party has no mention of any discussion on Ukraine or Russia. It merely quoted what Yang Jiechi said on the issue of Taiwan, Tibet, Xinjiang, which is Uyghur, and Hong Kong.
This is just a sample case for you to know that after such a meeting, and each side write their own statement, and what is CCP is writing. Okay, they just pretty much ignore most of the discussion on Ukraine and Russia, and just mention things that are completely unrelated to that. Anyway, the U.S. side, however, sent a diplomatic cable to its allies in Europe and Asia, saying that China has conveyed a willingness to assist Russia, which has asked for military support. The cable also did not state definitively that the assistance has been provided.
So United States also warned in the cable that China would likely deny it was willing to provide assistance. And the U.S. warned China that no country can escape sanctions itself if it were to help Russia to evade sanctions.
Among the requests that Russia raised to the CCP is it's an interesting case. Let me share with you. It's a prepackaged and a non-perishable military food kit. Such a kit in the U.S. military is called MRE, meaning meal ready to eat. Basically, the meal for the soldiers on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. And the request underscores the basic logistical challenges that the military analysts and the officials say have stymied Russia's progress in Ukraine, and it raises a question about the fundamental readiness of the Russian military.
And there have been reports of Russian soldiers deserting their vehicles and asking for food from the Ukraine farmers. Other reports saying that Russian troops broken into grocery stores in search of food as the invasion progressed.
There were also reports about Russian soldiers opening up their food kit only to find the food had expired in 2015. And over the weekend, there has been no clear progress. Oh, the next one has let's just stop here for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, let's just decipher the move. Russia is asking for China's support militarily and financially. That request or the revealing of their request is quite, it's very significant by itself. Mm-hmm. The reason is just think about this. If Russia has a smooth war, okay, just progress as planned, and as the Russian authorities claim, okay? And they would not do this type of move. And among the requests that they raised, one of them is just a food kit, the MREs, demonstrating that they don't have enough food prepared. So that's one thing, okay? Russia is short of basically food and ammos and so on and so forth. But what's more important, the more crucial issue here is this. Russia ask China, ask CCP to give them military support in an explicit way. And the US asks CCP, don't do it, otherwise you risk sanctions. And so CCP is facing this request from both sides, and it actually virtually has no way to hide. It has to take side, has to make a choice. Of course, if it were to make a choice to side with Russia, which actually in its mind it has already done so. One day before the Winter Olympics, and Putin went to Beijing and sat down with Xi Jinping, and they signed 15 agreements, and also $120 billion on the oil export. So Xi Jinping already, my opinion, okay, if I put my commentator's hat, Xi Jinping already promised Putin that just go ahead, we'll back you up, just like how it back up the North Korea. Okay, and because why did he do that? Let me just share you that my understanding of the issue based upon all the more than 20 years living in China and another 20 years reporting China. CCP saw a great chance. Okay, they want to, just poke Russia and Putin to attack, Ukraine and create a havoc over there in Europe. And that way, China would have the leverage, because the war, when it happened, China is sitting on the wall, sitting on the sideline, right? It has this innate advantageous position. And if Putin win, of course, that's great. Okay, I support Putin and you win. You need to come back and pay me back. And then if Putin lose, then Putin will come to CCP for help. So either way, CCP gains. So that's why Xi Jinping gave Putin the assurance that our partnership has no limit. Okay, with that kind of backing, Putin pulled the trigger and fire at the Ukrainian people and start the war. But now, okay, the war got stuck. The progress has been far from what Putin want, and the entire Europe and the U.S. and NATO, and even the world, most part of the world, unified and speak out and act against this aggression. Now Russia is in deep trouble. And at this time, if Xi Jinping still choose to stand by Putin, it will get dragged into it. He will get dragged into it. He will drag himself, his son, fall into the trap himself. That's the dilemma he faces. Right? But if he did say no, he tried to keep a distance, well, what about the original promise? And then Russia would have no way to hold this kind of severe sanctions. So now, I think the answer is this. I think Xi Jinping did a very good calculation initially and thought this is a great game to play. And it may end up with a terrible result for both Russia and China and the CCP.
Yeah,
and they have no place to hide now.
Right. So actually, it seems like since the beginning, even before the invasion started, the Chinese Communist Party's information war already started to aid Russia. Actually, I saw a report from kind of a research company in Taiwan. It's called the Double Think Lab. Okay, it has chronically recorded how the CCP's media and the social media rhetoric has been kind of cooperating with Putin's actions. And it shows how, what way you just explained, how the Chinese Communist government is kind of, initially trying to instigate it, aid Russia, then, it tried to appear to be like on the sideway, on the wall, and just manipulating the situation. So it's quite interesting because it shows mostly how the CCP state-run media and the social media, how it kind of use its narratives and the rhetoric during this process. So if you're interested, you can take a look. It's called Double Think Lab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that has been mentioned about the new axis forming in opposition to the American-led efforts. However, in the meantime, the U.S. government, our administration, still does not yet view the partnership between China and Russia as fully developed. Okay, but in name, they are kind of bind together very closely, but in operation, not quite yet.
Yeah, and I just actually talked to a person who researched China for many years, and he said, according to his research, CCP and Russia actually may not have a deep roots, saying that they would just run for help the others with each other. But for CCP, however it can get benefit from the situation, it will then get involved.
Yeah.
So.
And as you remember that Soviet Union, when China got taken over by the communists in 1949, okay, it was actually a satellite, regime of the Soviet Union. Okay, they are supposed to be in the same camp, but in the 1962 they broke off. Okay, they no longer align. They just fought each other. Okay, the reason is, one is always jealous about the other. One is always just guard against the other. Okay, both wants to be the number one, wants to be the boss in the relationship. Okay, so they're very suspicious about each other, and then now they bind together only because of this so-called common enemy, because of the West. They have the need to fight the West at the same time. That's they bind together. So that union is faulty by itself. It's weak and vulnerable at a fundamental level. And now, if Russia failed the war, then what they got left with themselves is only in trouble, because at that time, China, by aligning with Russia, CCP has chosen to stand on the other side of the free world in an unambiguous way. Now it only become more and more unambiguous as time goes by, and this is something that actually CCP is very afraid of. But it seems that it's taking on the road of no return. They have no way to readjust that. They just keep going on until someday they stand on the other side of virtually most of the country in this world. And and in my understanding, okay, that's actually sensible, okay, because that came from the evil nature of this regime. And okay, now some quick update of the development in Ukraine. First, over the weekend, there has been no clear progress by the Russian army that is trying to attack Kyiv, the Ukraine capital, according to the U.S. Defense Department. However, more than 30 Russian cruise missiles targeted the sprawling training facility that is less than 15 miles from the closest border point with Poland. Okay, and then more than 35 people died from that attack. Also, 9 people were killed in the missile attack on the TV tower near Riven. Yeah, and the Riven is a northwestern Ukraine city. Yeah. So as you can see, Russia's hitting targets in the West Ukraine alarmed the NATO.
So National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that Sunday that the U.S. will defend every inch of NATO territory in the wake of a Russian attack on Western Ukraine this weekend. So how to understand the Russians' request and the United States' demand upon the CCP?
Yeah, that's something that we already discussed. And then now the next thing is about the crisis, humanitarian crisis, okay, as the war enters third week, okay, according to the United Nations, and the number of the refugees that fleeing Ukraine has reached 2.7 million people. And the United Nations estimate that eventually 10 million people will be fleeing the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this has become the fastest developing refugee crisis since the World War II in Europe. Okay, so that's the update. I don't know how you think about the war, how you think about the issues of CCP's positioning. Okay, now is facing pressure from both Russia and the U.S., and they have to demonstrate their choice. And then, if you ask me what's their choice, in their mind, of course, they want to side with Russia. And if you ask me, are they going to substantially just support Russia to its war? I say, yes. Why am I so confident? Just think about North Korea. How can North Korea, under decades of economic sanction, can still stand? I mean, the regime, because there's a backdoor into China. China will open that backdoor to Russia, okay? But basically on the surface, in terms of rhetoric, in terms of the positioning on the foreign relationship, they'll be very, very careful until someday they got caught, red-handed. But even so, our administration has to be very, very strong. Otherwise, they always say something and they do the other thing. It has been that way for virtually more than 70 years since it's, got to rule China.
Yeah, Ronnie Lu said that the price of oil has dropped to $97 a barrel.
Okay.
Yeah, so the oil price did drop.
Which is good news.
Right. So one of the reasons, I saw some analysts saying that actually one of the reasons is because of the resurge of the pandemic, resurge of the pandemic in China.
Okay.
Because China is one of the largest consumer of the energy, right?
Yeah. So before we move on to the next topic, and let me just put a little context here, okay? Facing the pandemic, how to deal with it? How to deal with it? We all know how we deal with it in the U.S. It's it's not always consistent. It's a back and forth. But basically, in general, you can say that we chose to live with the virus, right?
But now, especially like most of people just realize that that's a way to get out of it is to actually live with the virus.
Yeah. Now largely we got this herd immunity, okay? And it seems that the Omicron is not able to really threaten us in a really hard way. The whole country is opening up. That's where we are today. But in China, that has been always a different policy. Okay, and that policy was chosen and insisted.
And also be touted by the Chinese authority, saying that China has the best way to deal with the pandemic and has been very successful, even influenced some of the countries and regions to adopt not fully, but at least a part of its measures. So what is going on in China right now?
And this policy is called 动态清零. It's very hard to translate into
maybe it's
English.
like a dynamic zero COVID policy.
Yeah, basically just zero. No case is tolerated.
Yeah, like once there is a new case, they identify a new case, then the whole district or the whole city, even the whole province will be shut down, will have to go through, everyone should go through the testing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically, it's called the dynamic zero COVID policy.
And they really touted as, see, we're unique, that's why we're so safe. And there's so few cases. Of course, with no independent media, we don't know what's the real number of cases. But they touted as such that our basically no tolerance of any case is the best policy in this world.
Tight control is the way to go. Yeah. Basically, it's just trying to show the world.
Yeah, did it work?
That's the way to go.
Yeah, did it work? That's the we have that. It was sort of unfortunately we have the answer tonight. And Kathy.
Okay, so now there is a resurgence of the pandemic in China, the country where COVID-19 or Wuhan virus or CCP virus, whatever you would like to call, originally emerged and spread throughout the world. So China has been suspected of concealing the true COVID numbers since the beginning of the pandemic. but outbreaks have recently been reported in especially northeastern provinces and Shanghai and also like the southern cities. But overall, around the country, there is a resurgence. So let's take a look at the case numbers. According to the Chinese government's National Health and Wealth Commission, the number of new infections per day continued to reach record high since the early 2020s after the Wuhan outbreak.
And 1,437 new confirmed cases were reported nationwide on March 13th. And cumulatively, there are nearly 117,000 reported confirmed cases and 4,600 deaths.
It's still, so the death still remains as of 2 years ago. Noted.
Yeah, and has been, the government has been tracing a total of 1.8 million close contacts.
Yeah, that's the policy goes. So according to the CCP's National Health and Wealth Commission, by late February, China has vaccinated nearly 90% of its population with a total about nearly 3.2 billion doses of vaccinations. And mostly it's the Chinese-made CoronaVac.
It's called Kexin, right? Yeah, and so what are the measures that CCP took? It's quite extreme, okay? Some local governments are taking emergency measures such as locking down entire cities to control the outbreak. And most of the new cases were concentrated in the northeastern province of Jilin. On the March 11th, after 2 new cases and 21 asymptomatic infections were reported, the city of Changchun, the capital of the Jilin province, declared a city closure and imposed a lockdown on more than 9 million residents. Okay, this is what they can do. They can do that any moment. Shutting down work, classes, and the buses, and the people were asked to stay home with 1 person per household going out every 2 days to purchase food and other necessities. The city implemented 3 full rounds of COVID testing.
On March 14th, the whole Jilin province declared a provincial closure. Okay, just what we said was just the capital city. And then a few days later, on March 14th, the whole province is closed, shut down. And it issued an announcement that the province's 24 million people must not leave home. They are forbidden to move privately across the region. And if they were to wish to leave the province, they have to register at the local police station. The government announcement ends with a warning that people who violate the rules and move across the regions will be held accountable by the disciplinary and the public security authorities in accordance with the law of the PRC on the so-called prevention and the control of infectious diseases and other laws and regulations.
If we move the time back a few days, on March 11th, students claiming to be from the Jilin College of Agricultural Science and Technology reported on social media that the school had been hiding the outbreak without reporting it. So many students had to follow the school's arrangement and stay in their dormitories without food and supplies of necessities. Video uploaded to the China's social media angrily denouncing the school's improper prevention and control. One video showed that those infected students had to lie on a desk in the library with no place for isolation and placement. And according to the news report, the outbreak was deliberately concealed and not reported by the school. Eventually, the local authority mobilized 300 local businesses and transported 6,500 students on the March 11. On the same day, the Jilin provincial government issued an announcement that the secretary of the university's party committee had been removed from his post.
Okay, so what does that mean? What do you read from that? Under such strict regulation, if a place, say for example, the college, the university, right? They had a kind of a local outbreak, but the leader in the university just so afraid that they didn't report, and they just concealed the situation and just restricted the students to go out and with even to the extent that they don't really have the necessities. But eventually the news get out. Actually, there were social media, like the parents are just crying, just saying why they just don't tell, So eventually the university's CCP committee head was removed. Eventually, he was punished.
Okay.
Yeah, he was trying to avoid the punishment. So that's what happening under such kind of zero COVID policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really it's very familiar, right? Way.
Yeah.
It's like in the Cultural Revolution and the Great Leap era. Because on the top, from the top down, it has such kind of a quota or restrictions. Then, the people underneath they just lie and conceal situation.
Yeah, essentially they were pressured to lie. Okay, which only grow the problem in the meantime. So if you look at Shanghai, the financial hub of China used to be a model city in controlling the pandemic with the so-called precision prevention. This is Shanghai's way. Rather unique, okay, different from this zero policy, and which seems to be effective. However, the Shanghai Municipal Health Commission reported 41 new confirmed cases and 128 symptomatic infections on Sunday. This is a serious breach of the control for Shanghai.
So in the more than 2 years since the outbreak in Wuhan, China, in early 2020, Shanghai has been very different from other provinces and the cities in mainland China. They insisted on their policy called precision prevention, not the dynamic zero COVID policy. It seemed to be effective, but during the 2 years, the cumulative confirmed case, as reported in Shanghai, was just over 400. But just in the past 1 month, it added 300 more. So the Shanghai Healthcare Commission itself criticized that the management oversight triggered these infections and led to the transmission. And so what did it do? It will conceal entire residential or business building. Conceal off, yes. Entire residential or business building whenever there is a confirmed case. And the Chinese website have reported some apartments has been, or the hotels has been urgently requisitioned by the government on the ground of pandemic prevention without any prior notice or rehousing plan. And the residents were just forced to leave as soon as possible. So other cities also have imposed strict restrictions. So for example, Shenzhen, which is the tech hub in southern China, announced on March 13th a lockdown for the whole city for 7 days. And the next day, Dongguan, which is the manufacturing city neighboring Shenzhen, also imposed a similar lockdown.
And the iPhone manufacturer, in China has facing this lockdown too.
Yeah,
Foxconn, which we could feel the impact a few days later, sometime down the road. And so what's the resurgence reason? Okay, and the local health officials in China said that the surge in cases were caused by the more contagious but less symptomatic variants of Omicron. And China has been sticking to its so-called dynamic zero COVID policy to try to contain the outbreak. And its numbers are much smaller than those of the most countries in the world, suspected to conceal the number, of course. But the rapid increased numbers constitutes a new setback to this very policy that the party felt very proud of.
However, the CCP's premier Li Keqiang on March 11th still defended such policy at a press conference at the end of the National People's Congress, saying that China's decision of such policy is based on science, while seeking to ensure a smooth supply chain. So let's take a look at Hong Kong. So actually, we reported to you already, Hong Kong just had such a big surge, and now about 700,000 people got infected. And there's a surge of the death as well. According to the Public Health Department in Hong Kong, most of the deaths are elderlies over 65 who are unvaccinated. So, in Hong Kong, actually, there's also a very high percentage of vaccination. But as you can see, for the people, the elderlies, especially 80 and up, the vaccination rate is less than 55%. So why is such a so low rate for the elderlies? Because one thing is, according to the people in Hong Kong, the so-called dynamic zero COVID policy seems to have keeping the cases very low. So people were thinking, maybe it's working. And on the other hand, people were concerned that the elderlies, the risk of the vaccines may outweigh the benefits. So the Hong Kong government, while they promoting the vaccine, they are not really focusing on the age group that they should have been focused on. So when the Omicron outbreak began sweeping Hong Kong in January, there are still 500,000 people over 70s in Hong Kong who have not been vaccinated.
And Hong Kong's crowded residential areas and the nursing homes have become the hardest hit, with about 60% of the death coming from that area. And Karen Grampin, and she's the associate professor at the University of Hong Kong's School of Public Health. And she said, we are not doing enough to protect our most vulnerable citizens.
So Hong Kong has one of the highest life expectancies in the world, with a life expectancy of almost 83 years for men and 88 years for women in 2020. About 60,000 elderly people live in nursing home in Hong Kong. Some seniors live in dormitory-like rooms and use communal bathrooms, while the number of caregivers is decreasing as more people are contracting the virus. So nearly 87% of Hong Kong's 800 nursing homes have had an outbreak of Omicron. The outbreak is still spreading because there's not enough space for proper isolation of infected people.
Mm-hmm. So what's the Hong Kong government's measures? Previously, Hong Kong tried to deal with the outbreak through strict travel restrictions and quarantine measures. As the number of the infections rapidly increased, the helpiness went unanswered. The helpline, yes, went unanswered. Okay, and ambulances took hours to arrive, and hospitals were overcrowded, and the morgues were nearly full.
So Hong Kong government's policy has been really criticized by the healthcare experts. And they are just urging the government to have an exit plan from the dynamic zero COVID policy, just like Singapore. So what's Singapore's case? Singapore, they slowly open up the most susceptible groups. Let me just do it again. Reword it. So in Singapore, they just focus on the most susceptible groups, like the elderlies, for the vaccination. So once they have, I think, there are actually reports saying that by mid-February, vaccination rate in Singapore exceeded 90% for the people age of 70 and up. So once they achieve that, they slowly open up the society and the business. So Singapore's COVID death rate per million people was about only 1/13 of that of Hong Kong, according to Oxford University's statistics. So the Hong Kong SAR launched a vaccination program last February with target of a vaccination rate for over 70%. But there was no prioritize for the elderlies. When the government announced that the age group will be expanded for the vaccination, they actually prioritized to give the young people aged 12 to 17. And recently they said, it's open up to lower the age to 3 for the vaccination. So that's really the problem. The other problem is most of the vaccines in Hong Kong was what we said, it's a corona vax. It was produced in China. So, and there are studies showing that actually this type of vaccine failed to improve protecting against Omicron variant.
Okay, and the study suggests that the people who have received the coxine vaccine should receive another vaccine. The study showed that after a third dose of the messenger the RNA vaccine from biotech in Germany, people who have previously received the coronavac intact have had significantly higher levels of antibody protection against Omicron. And while the mechanism by which the coronavac fights Omicron is not yet clear, the preliminary results are a blow to those who received the vaccine. The coronavac is one of the most widely administered vaccines in the world, with more than 2.3 billion doses shipped, most of which are used in China and the developing countries.
So the wave of deaths in Hong Kong has, should be a wake-up call for mainland China, because in China it's the same case. On the other countries like Japan, it shows that for the age group of from between 60 to 80s, their vaccination rate is just between 67% to 90, almost 95%. The older age, the vaccination rate is higher. So, but in China, what's the case? According to the National Health and Wellness Commission, they acknowledge that in comparison, the proportion of vaccination rate for in China's elderly population is relatively low. Some provinces and cities have a vaccination rate of less than 30% for the elderly population over 80 years old, and less than 50% for the people who are over 70 years old.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of details, and the purpose is to show you that how things are in China. Actually, we try to show you that in China, a vaccine policy or a pandemic policy is not really just a medical policy. It's a policy has to do with so-called the politics, has to do with the correctness of the party, and the party want everybody to believe the party is always right.
Yeah, and it's a political ordeal, like a duty for the party. So I will show you very short 2 videos. Okay, it happened. The first one happened in Xi'an, which we reported in January. It had a research. So this video shows that actually in the neighborhood there's a pandemic prevention officer. So the residents was asking, "You are not allowing me to go out and eat." And then the officer was replying no food. Okay, and the citizen asked, "What should I do if I die of hunger?" Then the officer just said, "I have nothing to do with that." So yeah, let's show Z1. So the person was asking, what if I died? And then the officer just said, if you don't have the pass to go out, then you just cannot go out. If you die, there's nothing to do with me. Another video showing it's in a residential district in Xi'an. So the person was the officer was using a large microphone, telling everybody, as long as there is growing just one piece of rice left in your home, you do not go out. As long as there is a drop of cooking oil left in your home, then you just stay at home and do not show your head. And he continued saying, as long as there is one onion left in your home, you do not come out to the supermarket. As long as there is one piece of bread you left at home, then you stay at home and guard your position. And this is to show your, contribution to the party. So this type of official propaganda against the pandemic, it's just really criticized by the netizens as inhumane. But it just happened all over in China.
Yep. So now you got a taste of how communists work, and hopefully we never have to experience that ourselves. All right, that would be all for tonight, eh? Mm-hmm. So, okay.
Yeah. So, do you want to show any, read out any comments or?
Yeah, let's take a look. So. Yeah, Larry, you said Larry Dooley, like here in the US, it's all about the power, nothing to do with the real science. Yeah, similar, only more thorough. Okay, and so basically they can just think about it. There's a city we mentioned probably, just quickly, and like shutting down Shenzhen. Shenzhen is a major tech hub, huge city. I don't know how many people they have. Maybe you can check that at this time. Maybe 10 million people. 10 million people. They shut it down overnight. All the high-tech production, everything just shut down for 7 days. It just pause, stop. And would that hurt Chinese economy? Of course. Would that hurt the world's economy? Of course.
Yeah, by the way, Shenzhen has about 12.6 million people.
It's a gigantic city. Just shut it down just like that. But they still shut it down. Even it hurt China's economy. Why? Because the supreme leader has to be right. The supreme leader is saying that zero case policy. That shows the advantages of the socialist system. It become a national pride. It become a pride of the party. So no matter what's the cost, they shut it down. This is how ridiculous the socialists can come to. And you can imagine that where it will be ended with. It will ended in trash. Because they just have this way of working that will trash itself, trash the economy. And again, so we show you this, and we just hope that you just heard the story. Okay, you never have to live through that, right? That's our entire purpose.
Yeah, and when we see some policies maybe here, hopefully it will remind you, how it will be similar to what's in communist China. James, California said a consolidated effort to bring the West under totalitarian policies government. Yeah, actually, we have seen that the policies that the Chinese Communist government has enacted had more or less some influence in some of the Western countries. Mm-hmm. So that's why we wanted to, share a lot of details of what's happening in China with you, so that you will be more alert when you saw, similar things or policies in a to the lesser extent appears locally or in our federal level, but when it's there are signs that you can watch out.
Yeah. Okay. So wow, gosh, I think. Let me see.
Oh, Alice is asking again. Is there a joke?
Holly, you're always there.
Yeah.
And, putting the pressure on me. And actually, Kathy sent me a joke earlier today, right?
Okay, yeah, so you want to
It's very well understood in Chinese, but let me try it in English. In China, in the Beijing, there's this memorial, right? memorial of this Mao Zedong. The Mao Zedong is the chairman of the
the
first supreme leader of the CCP. Mao. He was he was there, right? He's how to say, what's the word? Mommy nice. So there's a dry body just sitting in this crystal, how to say, coffin. All right, always for people to adore and things like that. So there's a kid, there's a boy, and he's with his mom was visiting a memorial. Okay, this is a joke in China. Okay, and they cannot be too explicit. So a Chinese boy and his mother visited a memorial, and he saw this mummy-shaped kind of body in the crystal coffin. So the boy asked the mother, "Mother, why doesn't this body, rot?" The mommy said, "Because he's a big official. He has a lot of power and a lot of money, so he bought a lot of junk food. So he eats so much preservative. Okay, so that's why when he dies, it does not rot." And a little too quick. Okay, the boy said, "Well, junk food is so scary. I would never eat junk food anymore." Mother just nodded. "Okay, you said that right. However, this person who eat the junk food is even more scary than the junk food themselves." And the boy asked him why, and he said, "Because this is a junk person. Okay, the country he lead this country, the country will eventually become a junk country." So the boy said, "Mom, I would never like to live in the junk country." The mom said, "Study well, be diligent. In the future, you can emigrate. You can move to the other country.
United States."
Okay, please. All right, so they have to talk in a very implicit way, right?
Yeah, subtle way, but as I think in one way is that the mom really tried to motivate the kid to
study
English well. First, not to eat junk food. Second, study well and immigrate. And that's actually, I think it's telling the truth. A lot of in China, just people still, although the party told people that you cannot admire United States, it's our enemy. But a lot of people just think you have to, for their kids, one day you need to go to the United States.
Yeah, let me tell you a real story, okay, about how Wei came to the came to the U.S. So in the 1980s, I was in college in Shanghai, and my father is a college professor, so he came to the U.S. as a visiting scholar. Okay, so he stayed there for like 5 months. Mm-hmm. Okay, with every day those little allowance, he saved every single dollar. Okay,
every single penny probably.
Every single penny, not dollar. Every single dime and every single penny, because every penny you time it many times, like 6 or 10 times, and then he went back and bought a refrigerator and bought a laundry machine and color television and so on and so forth, which we did not have. So just overnight, like after half a year, our home got modernized. We got all the gadgets.
Like a refrigerator.
Yeah. So my father, just like the mom, would talk me out here and wrote me and said something very subtle. He said that the other country, their civilization is the main thing, not other things. Just like that. Their civilization is the main thing, not other things.
What do you mean by other things?
It means the U.S. The civilization is great, not how we criticize the U.S. to be.
Yeah, I also wanted to share in this case.
So wait a second. So I took that in, I understood, because we are talking, in this implicit language. So I understand. My father wanted me to go to the U.S. just like the mother told the boy. Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up here.
You know how I was brainwashed, how severely I was brainwashed when I was like age of 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. In relation to this topic. I still vividly remember one day at the dinner table when I was really like around 5 years old, my mom was like saying to me, she's calling my nickname and saying, just to eat more, because I didn't like to eat at that time, right? Just you have to eat well and you study well, and one day you will go to the United States to study. for your further, study.
Education.
Yeah, education. And you know how I responded? I was like, no way. That's our enemy. I will never go there. That's a 5-year-old when I was 5-year-old. And in my thinking, I was, you can say it's from nowhere, but now I know where it came from. It's from the propaganda. I was thinking, United States is our enemy and I will never come to here. And today, we are here and just totally understood how people in China were brainwashed.
Yep. Okay. Hope this will, Holly. This would.
Yeah, he liked it. And another question saying, is this a Hong Kong show? No, it's not a Hong Kong show. We are, for our first viewers here, we and Kathy are here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we are the immigrants from mainland China years ago. So,
Yep.
and another Lee Mama Rick said we are lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're lucky to have you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that'll be all for tonight. Thank you very much for staying with us. Remember to click the like and the subscribe.
Make sure you are subscribed.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe. Sometimes you got unsubscribed by.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye bye.
Yeah. See you after 2 days.